Hey guys, it's Josh here, and in this video, I want to talk about how I learned to process my difficult emotions with meditation. So, I've been meditating since I was 17 years old because I was scared of my mind and I was scared of losing control and I was really scared of the world. Back then, I was actually scared of myself. I was looking forward towards my life, and as a 17-year-old, so I was only a teenager, looking forward to my life and thinking this is going to suck. Right? I didn't know how I was going to live in the state of mind that I was in, and I knew that I didn't want to take medication for my mental health, and that led me to look for other solutions. And so that's when I found meditation and I started to meditate. And at the time, I had no idea what I was doing. But 15 years later, and now I've learned a few very, very helpful things through my meditation practice. And I didn't know back then, but that practice that I discovered would reshape my whole life. My whole life now has been shaped by meditation. And some of the things that I've learned have been profoundly helpful for me on my journey through life. So much so that it's my mission in life now to give back and share some of the lessons that I've learned. And one of those important lessons is how to process difficult emotions, right? I work with clients every single day to help them manage their anxiety and their difficult emotions. And it's very common for people to struggle with processing their emotions, like anxiety or fear or shame or depression. People have these experiences, these emotional experiences, and they really want to get out of it, right? They don't want to be experiencing what they're experiencing. They don't want to have these emotions, right? They're living in this state of stress and pressure, this heightened kind of state. And it's not just emotional, it becomes a mental thing and an emotional thing, and it becomes a physical thing. So people have like these physiological symptoms as well in their body. So it's a full on experience, right? Mind, body, and emotion, energy. And so if you're struggling with your emotions, it can lead you to do all sorts of crazy things. It can lead you to lash out at others, to be reactive and explosive. It can cause you to be withdrawn and to turn away, to go into a freeze response. It can really create some dark thoughts in your mind. It's not a pleasant way to live, right? It can make you feel like you are actually going crazy, and it can make you feel like there's actually something wrong with you. And I know because I've been there before, right? And it sucks. It's not a good place to be. And so in this video, I'm going to talk to you about a couple of key things that you can do that are going to help with that, right? A couple of very simple things that I've learned through my meditation practice, right? And the first one is to stop avoiding your emotions. Like I just said, most people try to avoid, they try to fight, they try to change. And what they're actually doing is they're just suppressing. They just suppress their emotions. We can suppress, we can express, or the aim of the game is really to accept, right? So suppression, when we suppress our emotions, it looks like us trying to resist it, trying to change it, trying to fight it, trying to avoid it. Sometimes this can just be an internal process that we have where we try to avoid the feelings that we're having. And if we do that internally, it usually creates this resistance, a lot of resistance, right? Sometimes people opt for external solutions. So they might try to avoid their emotions by going and drinking, doing drugs, masturbation, uh, eating food, working really hard. Those are things that people can also do, which is like a form of avoidance, right? Working, drinking, taking drugs, watching porn, masturbating, eating food, all avoidance mechanisms. Or an internal one, a lot of the people that I work with, some of them struggle with those kinds of things like addictive tendencies, but sometimes people don't struggle with that. And it's not an external thing, it's an internal thing. And they just have this real internal resistance to the experience that they're having. Now, what's happening here is they're usually telling themselves some kind of mental story about their like something that's wrong with them. They're associating the experience that they're having in the present moment with some past experience, some traumatic past experience, and they're creating an identity around it. They're creating a story around it, a mental narrative that says, I'm this way because of this thing over here, right? And they create this association and this link to like their trauma, and they actually start to identify with it and become very attached to it. And again, they tell themselves all these negative emotions, these negative stories, which lead to these negative feelings in their body. And for the life of them, they just want to avoid it and they want to resist it and they want to change it. However, you can't do that, because what that does is it just suppresses, right? Now, it's very common people talk about expression. It's like, oh, you should talk about it. You should go to therapy. You should talk about it. You should tell someone. And although that does help in a sense that it provides you some temporary relief, just talking about it, just expressing your problems is not actually going to solve them in the long run, right? It can also become a kind of coping mechanism where you're seeking external validation instead of processing what you need to process internally. So the aim of the game is really acceptance, okay? You have to get to a place where you're aware of your experience, you're aware of your emotions, you're aware of your thought processes, and you actually accept them, right? And this is the second point that I wanted to talk about, because what I learned in my meditation was I needed to stop avoiding my emotions, and I needed to start allowing and accepting my emotions. If you want to actually read the blog post for this video, if you go below, there's a link in the description. You can check out the blog post. But you need to actually start allowing and accepting your emotions. So it's opening up to them, letting go of your need to control everything, and actually giving yourself permission to feel what you need to feel. Because here's the truth. The whole range of human emotions are normal. You're allowed to feel everything from shame to grief to anxiety to anger, to happiness and peace and love and joy. They're just polar opposites. People tend to think these negative emotions are the ones that I don't want, and I want more of these positive emotions. But that is an illusion. You cannot have one without the other. And that's the problem for people. They try to avoid the negative ones and only have the positive ones. But that way of thinking and that mindset is completely flawed, because it doesn't exist. There's a universal law of polarity. Everything in the universe has a polar opposite, right? You've got night and day, man and woman, good and bad, positive, negative, night and day. You've got the branches and the leaves on the tree, and then you've got the roots in the ground. We've got children, and then we've got, old people, young people, old people. The point I'm making here is that there's always a polar opposite. You can't have the good without the bad. And so people who are really struggling with their emotions, they're trying to avoid these ones, or they're saying they have some kind of a mental story which says these are bad and I don't want them, and I only want these ones over here. But if you really want to heal, you need to develop your emotional capacity to hold the negative emotions and to process them and to feel them without resistance, without attachment either, without some expectation of how it should be. You just let yourself feel them. And then when you do that, you're going to expand your range of emotional capacity. You'll be able to actually feel more of these positive emotions, right? Acceptance, the feeling of acceptance is a feeling. It's kind of like forgiveness. And it's kind of like this letting go feeling. I'm accepting. It is what it is, right? I am as I am. It's you just accept and allow the experience you're having. And when you can learn to bring that quality, that feeling state, and apply it to your shame, your anxiety, your grief, your sadness, whatever it is, it doesn't mean that these go away. It just means that they become a lot easier for you to navigate, right? And for a lot of people, this is really hard. And at the time, when I started to learn meditation, I had no idea about this stuff, right? But now it's actually backed by science. You can go and look up the studies that have been shown. What meditation does is it brings you from what's called your amygdala, and it brings the activity up to the prefrontal cortex. So if you imagine your brain for a second, it also has these polar opposites, right? It has the top of the brain and the bottom of the brain, right? I'm simplifying it. but that's essentially what it is. You've got the prefrontal cortex up the top here, and then you've got the amygdala down the bottom here. Again, it's like a polarity. The amygdala is kind of your emotional processing center, whereas the prefrontal cortex is your more logical processing center, right? So what we want to do, and what we do when we meditate, is we strengthen the prefrontal cortex, which is our ability to think clearly and logically. We actually strengthen that part of the brain. And when we do that, what happens is we're able to manage this lower part of the brain, the amygdala. We're able to stop being in this survival state, constantly emotional and overwhelmed, and we're able to come up into a more reasonable and rational and logical state of mind. And when you can do that, that's when you can actually process your emotions. And all of this happens through meditation. Again, when I first started, I didn't know any of this. I just sat there and meditated anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes a day. And this process just happened. I just started to just improve the health of my brain. And I started to have all these emotions coming up, and I sat with them in meditation, because meditation is a safe practice and a safe place where you can feel these things. So I was just feeling these things, and it was just coming up, and I was allowing it to be there, and it kind of just came through and it rolled through. And it's kind of like a garden hose, right? If you suppress your emotions, it's like you put a kink in the garden hose. When you allow and accept your emotions, it's like you're opening the garden hose so the water can flow again, so your emotions can flow again, right? Now, the problem people have with meditation is that they go to sit down and then they think, well, this is just too hard. I can't do it. It's frustrating. I'm having all these negative thoughts. I'm having all these negative emotions. Fuck this. I don't want to do it. But you have to go through. Like, you can't go around that stuff. You can't avoid it. Those things that are coming up for you in your meditation practice when you go to sit down that are uncomfortable and frustrating, those are the exact issues that you need to work through. And if you keep avoiding them, they're never going to change. Again, you just suppress it and it just stays there, and it comes up later. Maybe it comes up in health issues. Maybe it comes up in a physical symptoms that you're not even really aware of, right? If it's like you suppress all these things, and a lot of the time you're not even conscious of doing that. You're not even aware that that's what you are doing, but it is what you are doing. And then later on in life, all of your system gets all clogged up, stressed out, pressure, right? All these kind of issues start to happen. All these diseases start to happen. And it's really just all of your suppressed emotions. You haven't allowed your emotions to be free flowing because you've been suppressing everything and you didn't realize that's what you were doing. So you have to stop avoiding your emotions, right? You have to start accepting and allowing your emotions when they come up. Every time your emotion comes up, it's a blessing because it's an opportunity for you to process. But people don't look at it like that. They think about, oh my God, negative emotions. No, thank you. Right? You have to start changing the way that you view your emotions. Your emotions are perfectly normal, perfectly natural. And every time they come up, it's an opportunity for you to actually become a more grounded, present, peaceful, and clear person. Every time you have these big emotional experiences, that's an opportunity for you to get more emotionally intelligent. Because here's the thing, your emotions don't come up all the time, right? They come up sometimes, right? And so when they do come up, it's actually an opportunity for you to get more connected with them and to manage yourself better and to develop yourself. That is actually how I see it, right? And that is actually how it is. So if you want to process your difficult emotions, you need to stop avoiding them, start accepting them and allowing them. And a practice like meditation is so helpful because it really helps you to rewire your brain. And it helps when you have this like top-down approach where your brain is rewired, the way you're thinking about your emotions is rewired, the way that you're actually processing your emotions is completely different. It has this flow-on effect and it creates this healing through the body, right? Again, I've worked with all sorts of people who have very high levels of anxiety, some people very angry, very frustrated, lots of grief, lots of sadness. And the same principle applies to everyone, right? The only thing that stops people from having success with this stuff is their own ego, and it's their own pride, and it's their own stubbornness. So, or it's just a lack of commitment. Like it's like they're just not committed to actually healing, and they would prefer to just continue suffering. And again, they don't probably consciously think that, but that is what's happening, right? They're making a choice to continue to suffer when there is a solution that's available, but they're just not thinking clearly about it, and they're not willing to have the courage to seek out the change. But if you're ready to change and you want to learn more about how I can help, then in the link below, there's going to be a link to the Mind Launch Method. which is on my website. You can check it out. It's a short video that explains my 3-step process. Regulate, reprogram, reset. This is how you can transform your life in the next 90 days. If you're struggling with anxiety or emotional reactivity, it's a no-brainer. So go check it out. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.